Alan, I get this kind of question a lot, particularly from people who are interested in becoming real estate investors, but man, they're not there yet. They see other people making money, they want in. But they tell me, Ernie, my credit is not that great. Do I need to wait till I've saved up 20, 30, 40% before I can even get into this?
So yes and no. There are strategies where you can buy without having 20 to 40% down, and there are loans out there that will lend to people with subpar credit, but there is a limit to that, right? You're not going to have a credit history where you have shown that you can't pay your debts and still walk in and say, I want to buy this big asset. While your credit doesn't have to be perfect, it has to be decent and show that you are paying your debts on time. Investor loans typically don't require a 700 plus credit score. There are some that will go down as low as 650. But you want to know that the lower you go down, the harder it's going to be to close those. Typically what we're looking at are, if you're looking to buy investment properties, your credit should be something that becomes a priority. As you start buying more and more property, you start moving through different loan types, including one that I personally love a lot called the DSCR loan, which is a debt to service coverage ratio loan. And typically that loan isn't looking at the investor's income or doesn't verify where they work or how much money they've proven in the last month or anything. What they're looking at is, does the house pay itself? When you go to rent it, will it pay the mortgage completely? Ideally, they want to see 100% coverage. Sometimes they want to see up to 110% coverage, or what they call a 1.1 coverage ratio. But in order to get those loans and be able to buy multiple properties, you have to have a 700 plus credit score. So if you're not there yet, you can start with some of the other loans that are available. You can start buying your first property. Even with an FHA loan, you can buy your first property with as low as a 580 credit score and move into the next one, creating that one as a rental. But you definitely want to make it a priority to start building that credit to that higher level so that you can buy multiples of them later.
So if I'm coming to you and I say, look, I've got a 600 credit score, I've got maximum that I can put 5% down. That's the max that I got on this property that I want. Would it be better to wait until my credit score gets higher or until my down payment gets higher?
It's never a good idea to wait if there's a possibility to do something now, right? Because now we've seen that the market is consistently increasing and the people that have waited are now paying the price for it, right? So if you have 5% down and you have a 600 credit score, the first thing that I want to do is see what kind of buying power you have, get you connected with one of our loan officers and see if we can get you into that property with that 5% down. Now, chances are, because it's an investment property, the minimum that they're going to require is 15% down. There are 15% down programs still available for investment properties. And so then what we're going to look at is, what is the price of the property and can we negotiate some seller contributions? And sometimes, if the property is right, if the scenario is right, if the loan is right, that 5% down from the borrower plus the seller contributions can get you really close to being able to make that loan happen. The rest of it sometimes has to come from gift funds from family members, or sometimes even the realtor may contribute towards getting that deal closed. There's a way to make it happen, but really it takes for you to ask the right people.
Landlords, as always, we welcome you to follow us on our Instagram page. If you're not a member yet, join us on Facebook. And if you enjoy what you see here, give us a thumbs up. Click that like button. We enjoy that very much. And if you haven't subscribed yet, please consider subscribing.
So Ernie, when we talk about buying properties, one of the things that always comes up is the dreaded word foreclosure. And I know that I think that's one of the biggest fears of people taking on debt because they're worried that for some reason they may not be able to pay it. And then what happens if they have to go into this horrible scenario called foreclosure? What are the legal steps necessary to avoid that?
So there are multiple of them, and I'll tell you that so many people don't understand the term foreclosure and they don't get who can actually foreclose. I get from time to time people who come into my office who receive letters that they are being foreclosed by their homeowners association. They say, Ernie, I know this is a total fabrication because my loan is current. I always pay my loan on time. And I have to explain to them, look, you're not being foreclosed by your lender, you're being foreclosed by the homeowners association because you didn't do X, Y, or Z. And so one way to avoid foreclosure is to take every letter you get that uses that F word, you take it seriously. And if you don't get it, you got to talk to somebody who does. Because too many people get in trouble because they believe something that simply isn't true. You can avoid foreclosure by being proactive. If you're going to be a real estate investor, you better learn that foreclosure can happen, and you should know how it happens. So the homeowner association can do it, your taxing entities can do it, the mortgage company can do it, and then if you've got rental property and you've got old judgments out there, guess what? Those can be used to seize property, and now you got to deal with a constable sale on that property. So by making sure you've got all your ducks in a row, you're paying your taxes, you're tending to your HOA, you're paying your loan on time every time, and you're clearing old judgments, you can avoid foreclosure just by keeping your nose clean, just by making sure you're covering all of your bases. Now, if you're at a point where you're getting those letters, you need to seek counsel sooner rather than later. Because while there are certain foreclosures that can be undone, Texas law does protect certain people who have been foreclosed. It doesn't extend to everybody, and it certainly doesn't extend to rental property. And so if you are foreclosed by one of these entities, you may have come to an attorney too late. If you're getting letters, talk to somebody who knows.
I completely agree. I usually, when I get someone to reach out to me because they're facing foreclosure, it's usually the week of the foreclosure, sometimes even the day before.
Right.
And how difficult is that for you when somebody reaches out to you last minute like that?
So it's virtually impossible. There is one Hail Mary they could do that we don't do, and that would be a bankruptcy filing. And if you're resorting to bankruptcy, that's the nuclear option. If that's the only way you're going to save your property, you're going to tank your credit. The best way to get ahead of these things is to find out the most you can the first time you get the notice. And the truth is, Alan, you know this, people already know when they're in trouble before they get that letter. And if they're burying their head in the sand and avoiding it by hoping, by just ignoring it, it's going to go away, that never works. Yeah. The thing that's going to go away is that property, not the problem.
Yeah, and that's how we see so many people lose properties even when they didn't mean to or didn't know better. It's just simply because they did exactly what you said. They stuck their head in the sand and forgot to tend to a problem.
So one thing I know about business investors is some of them have that type A personality and they don't need help from anybody. What do you tell the guy who's like, bro, I got this. What do I need a realtor for? I can do all this myself.
Well, it kind of depends. There are people out there that are savvy enough and have studied the market enough and really keep their thumb on the pulse to be able to do this effectively without the assistance of others. One of the things that we've learned along the way is that even when you're in the business, kind of like myself, at some point or another, you always need someone else's keen eye and someone else's knowledge. The latest example I can think of, for me personally, is when I got into multifamily. There was no way I was going to get into multifamily without reaching out to folks who had already invested in multifamily and asked what things I may be missing or what was I not going to be able to see, and they were able to guide me in the right direction. Another quick story is an example of a gentleman that I met this week who purchased a house without a realtor. Interestingly enough, he bought it in the Galleria area, which is a great part of town here in Houston. But he purchased it wrong. He purchased it as a bachelor pad, a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, and didn't project how long he was going to be there. So now he's only been there 5 years. He's ready to move out. And in order for him to move out and get a new property, he has to either lease or sell this one. When we run the numbers, he can lease it for $1,000, but his payment is $1,075. So he has to be willing to take a $75 loss until that property eventually pays itself off, or he has to be willing to walk away from the property and not make anything on the sale, because since he didn't purchase it right, he doesn't have enough equity to be able to sell it. And so the reason why I share that story with you is because a realtor would have asked him, what are your projected plans? What do you want to do with this property? How long do you expect to live there? Instead of showing him 1-1s, a realtor might have showed him some 2 bedrooms, 2 baths in the same area, maybe spend a little more, but would have given him a better potential resale value, or maybe a better potential rental value, and thus giving him more opportunity and more options when he was ready to sell or when he was ready to move to his next property. That's what someone who truly understands the market really does. It isn't that you don't necessarily need them. It's the fact that with their knowledge coupled with what you already have, you can make a better decision.
Right. You run into this all the time where you don't know what you don't know.
Right.
And if you find somebody who does know this area and they know it well, you can share what you know. And they can let you know, oh, but what about this? Have you thought about that? And let me suggest this. It doesn't hurt to ask questions before the fact. It hurts later when you're like,
why didn't I ask that?
Why didn't I? Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. I think it's interesting because I think the market perceives realtors sometimes as just a person that's opening doors. And that could be the case for some realtors, but for someone who's experienced, what you're really paying for is their experience.
Right.
When you're closing on a transaction or you're getting into something new, you're paying a commission and you're getting that person's 15, 20, or 30-year experience and learning what to do or what not to do.
Yeah.